to the place in the middle of the sun. And we'll sing this song, sing it one by one.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. Have another amazing conversation for you. I just really feel so much gratitude and so thankful to be able to have conversations with experts on pretty much a weekly basis. Sometimes we batch these shows, and actually this week I've recorded 5, but I just feel so thankful because I'm able to get this information, apply it to my own life, and then share it with you all. And I know it makes a difference for me personally in my personal life, and I think it does for you guys too. We get that feedback and we get emails. I got a really great email from a listener in New Zealand. I actually wanted to share it. I'll have to dig that up and share it in one of the pre-shows. But if you're out there listening, I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, but thank you for that email. And thank you guys for tuning in as always. Today, I welcome Keeley Rankin, and she is a San Francisco-based sex and relationship coach where she works with individuals and couples, helping them learn how to have amazing sex and fulfilling relationships. And today, Keeley and I talk about how to choose the right sex therapist. And you could also apply this to a therapist in general, but we have some really specific tips, or Keeley has some specific tips when it comes to choosing the right sex therapist. And there's a lot to navigate. She gives us some great tools, some very specific questions that you can ask your therapist, some things to ask yourself so that you can make the most out of your time, your investment in doing this work. And we talk a little bit about making that investment because, therapy is not the cheapest thing in the world. It can be quite affordable. We talk about sliding scales that a lot of therapists will offer, but it's really an amazing investment that's going to make you personally rich, right? And really assist you in digging into these things, whether you're doing it individually or with your partner. So take that leap if you're not already. Get a sex therapist. You'll have the tools to find the right one if you listen to this episode, or a general practitioner. It has been super powerful for me individually. I've been working with a therapist for almost 4 years now and find it extremely helpful. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy today's show. Hi, Keeley. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Hi, Chase. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm really excited.
Today, we're going to talk about something we haven't dedicated a whole episode to, and you're very passionate about it. I think it's super important, and that is how to find the right sexual practitioner. And in the pre-show, you mentioned you're really passionate about this, and a lot of times people might find the wrong one, and that gets them down the wrong path. So tell us why you love talking about this, and then we'll talk about how to find the right sexual practitioner.
Yeah, so my name is Keeley Rankin, and I am a sex and relationship coach based out of San Francisco. And I have been working with individuals and couples in a private practice for, I think I'm going on about 12 years now. And I have so much passion for this topic. I'm ecstatic that we're here talking about it because I really, truly believe a lot of people either they go to one person and it doesn't work out, or they don't like them, or they're just not a right fit. And then they never try again. Or they go to someone and they're giving them bad advice and they quit and then they never try again. I mean, there's so many variations on that. But I think giving the general public some tools of how to select the right coach or the right therapist and what to look for, and what, we can also go a little bit into like what might be different looking for just like a regular therapist versus someone who's going to help you with relationships and sex and what we should be looking for. I just feel like it's giving people information so that they can help themselves. And I just really truly believe in the power of self-reflection and looking at subconscious information that's going on inside of our brains to help us be better adults in the world and lead more fulfilling sex lives, have less shame, all of those things, have more freedom, more openness, more pleasure, joy. So yeah, I'm very, very passionate about this and really excited to be bringing this to your listeners.
I want to dive into all that, but maybe we could start by having you tell us when we should be seeking this kind of professional help.
So I have maybe a potentially triggering statement for some people listening. I think everyone should actually at some point in their lives see a person around sexuality, a professional around sexuality. And I think even if it's just 5 sessions, I think anybody who thinks that they don't need to see someone is the person who really, really needs to see someone. And, obviously the perfect time would be when you're in crisis or when you're worried or when you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You've been thinking about it for a long time. Those are all great times. But in general, I just think going and starting to talk about how, what your experiences have been with sex, your projections that you have, what your experience growing up with sex was, what you were taught, looking at all those different pieces to help you open your mind a little bit and understand yourself a little bit more can really impact the way that you do relationships with people, the type of sex that you get to have.
Yeah, it seems like the tendency is to seek therapy in general when you're in crisis, right? And if we can do the preventative work, start to understand these things for ourselves, then it's not about avoiding crisis because things are going to happen. Life is not perfect, but then we already have a deeper understanding of ourselves and we could grow more. And when it comes to sexuality, there's so much in it and we're going to talk about, but have better, healthier sex life. So let's talk about, in particular, finding the right sexual practitioner. And you mentioned it a little bit, but the mistakes that people make in how they find the wrong one and why that's a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and just to circle back around to the crisis piece, the biggest predictor of whether or not therapy will work is the readiness of the client. The biggest struggle, especially with couples work, is that people show up too late. They wait till the crisis is imploding. They're so far away from each other. There's been so much bad energy shared and so much trauma in that relationship that people have to leave. And, I think luckily, and I think the pandemic was great for this, it's really started to talk about therapy and self-work as something people can do just to deepen their own understanding of themselves. So I think there is some of the stigma coming off and people are feeling like, oh yeah, we can go to couples therapy even if we're not in a massive crisis. And it makes your therapist's job a lot easier if you are not, trying to murder each other in every session. You're just slightly angry. Makes it a lot easier to work through those pieces. So I just wanted to circle back around to that. But, I think the first step in finding a sex practitioner is, so one of the stories that I love to tell, I work with a client from Argentina and he tells me all the time, in Argentina, everyone has a therapist. It's just like, it's no big deal. And if you're looking for a new therapist because you've outgrown yours, you would ask your friend, hey, are you liking who you're working with? And so I think one of the first places to start to look for a therapist is actually to ask your friends if you feel safe and they feel like people that you admire. Even if your best friend loves their therapist, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the right fit for you. You may need someone completely different. That's okay, but it's still a good person to maybe start to check out. And I know because sex is such a sensitive topic, a lot of people don't feel comfortable asking their friends about it. That's okay too. So the next best place I would say is just an online search. So that would be just a Google search looking for people. The great news is a lot of people are doing online stuff now too. So you don't even have to find someone who's local. You can search people in major cities or areas where you think might be a little more progressive. I would say in general, sex therapy is going to probably go better for you with a slightly more progressive therapist than someone who's going to be shaming you and trying to get you to fit into a small box. That's normally not the way to really great sex or relationship. So, but as you're looking over people's websites, I think there's really important things to check out. I normally say, really read the whole website, all the information that is on there. This person has curated specifically for you to read. So, check out their schooling for sure. Make sure there's a master's degree. Look at where that these days, I think even researching what that master's degree school is Is it a real school, an accredited school? Especially PhDs. PhDs are things people are just getting these days left and right. So looking at those pieces, we want to avoid anybody who only has one training under them. It's, I think, really important to make sure that the information on there that they're going to give you is multifaceted, because like you had spoken to earlier, sex is such a huge topic. It really requires so much information to be able to help people, because it can go in so many different ways. And so checking to make sure that they have enough tools in their toolkit to really meet you where you're at and help you where you need to go. I think reading blog posts, looking the way they phrase certain issues, feeling that it resonates with you or it speaks to you, making sure their tone specifically is non-judgmental. And, I can imagine a lot of people are listening right now feeling like, oh, I don't really know what I'm looking for. Like I'm reading this person's stuff because Keeley on this podcast said that I should read through, but I don't know what I'm looking for. And one of the main things is safety. Do you feel safe reading this person's information? And we'll go into that a little bit more later, but you want to check in your body. Do you feel calmer? Do you feel like they've got you? Do you feel like you can just kind of like relax and nod along with what they're sharing? Obviously they seem educated and professional. I think those things are also really, really important. And you can also go and look for reviews too. Like look at someone's Google reviews or their Yelp reviews. And sex specifically is a little tricky. It's not like Yelping about a breakfast. It's like, especially Google these days, because it's tied directly to people's email accounts. A really great practitioner might not have a ton of reviews just simply because it's such a sensitive topic. And a lot of people are very, very private about sharing this information with the world, that they're exploring it. So it's okay if someone doesn't have a ton of reviews, but you would want to just sort of check out the ones that they have. And it's even okay, I think, sometimes if someone has a bad review, but you still like what that person had on their website, if they have like a funny Yelp review that's like maybe a couple stars and you're wondering about that, I think it's great to actually ask that practitioner either in your first discovery call, consult call with them, or in your first session. You can ask them, hey, I saw you had this review. Can we talk about, without breaching any confidentiality stuff, can we talk about what's going on there? And in terms of red flags, which I think is something we should definitely talk a lot about, like what are red flags to know when this is not the right practitioner for you? If somebody can't eloquently and non-defensively explain why they weren't a great fit and that didn't work out, that would actually be a red flag. This is the mental health field. So we are working with people who are sometimes more unstable. And the practitioner, a good practitioner can still hold a loving and kind space for someone who maybe wrote a not super nice review for them. So I think that's something important to remember.
Those are some great things to start thinking about. We're going to keep diving in, but I want to ask how often people go to this kind of therapy individually or as a couple, if it tends to be individually, and how to think about these things if we're going as a couple, some of the things that you're talking about already.
Yeah. The couples piece is tricky because sometimes one person in the partnership really loves the practitioner and the other person is not so sure, or, honestly doesn't even want to be in couples therapy. It's like, we don't need it. We're fine. I don't know why we need to talk about this. Talking about it's going to make it worse, which again, I will just reiterate, that is the person that should be in therapy if that's their belief. Again, my personal opinion, but I truly, genuinely believe that. And so trying to find multiple people, and I think actually doing multiple sessions with different people can be really, really helpful, and to determine what's best for your couple. Because unfortunately with couples work, someone who might be an amazing, amazing practitioner for one person really could be a bad fit for the other. And at that point you can decide, maybe the person who's a great fit does some individual work with that person, and you continue on and try and find a couples therapist that works. At some point, there has to be, a discussion of like, the person who's putting their foot down saying they don't like the practitioner, or sometimes you'll hear, well, I'm smarter than that person. That's I think always a really interesting one. If you go through 5 different practitioners and you are the person that feels like these people are not the right fit, I think it's a really good self-reflection moment. Like, do I really want to be in therapy? Am I ready to do this work? Why do I keep pushing people away? What am I afraid of? At some point, I think you would have to pause and self-reflect and ask yourself, like, what are my true intentions here? Am I just trying to sabotage this relationship? Do I just want it to be over? I don't actually want to do therapy. I mean, some of the harder questions, I would say.
And how about a male seeking therapy versus a female and matching with the same gendered therapist or not?
Right. Yeah. So in general, I would say it's slightly more difficult to find a male therapist. It is a predominantly female-driven profession. And there is definitely some value, I think, specifically in a heterosexual couple, if the male feels potentially like the women are going to gang up on him, or he had some mom stuff or some sister stuff, and he really wants more of that masculine energy in the room. Number one, you could just try and find a slightly masculine therapist. And one of the things that person could also do, the male could do, is have some individual sessions to determine if that person feels like the right fit and if they have the right connection. Or again, try and find the person that you think is going to be best. Like, if you really want a man in the room, you want a man's perspective. I think that's a wonderful thing to know internally, and still go through that process of really reading their website, making sure what they're saying feels like it fits for you. And it's not just a gender thing. I think that's a important piece, is like making sure that their training, that their energy, that what they're talking about feels like it's a good place for you to rest into and to trust. But to advocate for yourself, I think, if that's what you truly believe, like, I need another man here, that would feel better.
I feel like I'm pretty open and comfortable when I speak with my therapist, but she's not a sex therapist. It's just, individual general work. But I could talk to her about my sex life, but I think I would feel more comfortable if it was a male. It's just my intuition. I love her. I've worked with her for 3 or 4 years, but it's just that energy of, if I really wanted to be detailed, and there would be a certain comfort in the right match, but a male practitioner.
Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons I've been thinking so much about, yes, I totally understand that. And one of the reasons I've been thinking so much about finding the right sex practitioners, because I recently started to take on mentees and train mentees. And one of the practitioners I took on is a male, for that specific reason, because I think, just like there are women who wouldn't feel comfortable talking to men, which I think is something to work on at some point, there are also men who wouldn't feel comfortable talking to women. I think a piece around so general therapy in therapy school, in your master's program, you typically have between 10 hours and a semester or a quarter on training around sexuality, which is nothing compared to how big this topic is. So a general therapist, unless they've gone and gotten a lot of training and they feel really open, sometimes they themselves actually feel really uncomfortable. And so you sense that in the room, and you're like, I don't want to talk to this person about this. Or if that person doesn't look like they're having great sex, also, I don't know if they're the right person to be talking to. Like, if you sit with someone and it doesn't feel like they're really connected in their bodies and they're enjoying and loving their sex life, they may not be the person you want to be seeking help from. So, not saying anything about your therapist, I know nothing about them, but it's not a prerequisite to be a therapist to have done your work on sexuality. And I work with actually a lot of therapists in my practice on their own sexuality, not because they're going to take it into their rooms, even though I'm sure they will, but because they want to work on it. It's a very skipped over topic, unfortunately, in the land of therapy training.
I didn't ask this specifically, but let's say we are seeing a general practitioner therapy, just doing self-work, working on our relationship, but they're not a specialist. How do we, or when do we go, okay, like, I want to go to a sex therapist? Is it if I feel like my sex life is really in shambles or I'm really lost? How do we distinguish?
So I think it would be one of the things that's important to remember, and again, this is another sort of red flag, is therapists, sexual practitioners in general, healing practitioners are trained to have conversations with you about where they're able to go in their professional relationship with you. So if you're feeling like we've done all this great work with this couples therapist, and now we want to work on our sex life, not because it's in shambles, just because we're curious. Could it be better? Could we be more connected? Which the answer is always actually yes. Like there's always room to expand and improve our erotic worlds. Sometimes you have the energy for that and it's top of mind. Other times you've got a lot of other things going on in your world and it's not. So I think if there's the question of like, can we explore this? The answer is always like, sure. Yeah, of course. There's lots of fun, wonderful things to explore. So then the piece would be talking about it with the person you've been working with. Hey, we want to start to talk about sex. Do you feel like you're educated enough and you want to talk about this with us? And then you can try it on. Some people will say yes, that they do. And then you get into it and you kind of feel like, oh, I don't know that they have a ton of, things to offer, at which point you could ask them for referrals or you could start searching out people. When I first started out, a lot of my business was built on referrals from therapists that didn't want to talk about sex in their practice. So it was like, oh, you want to talk about that? You go to this person over here.
That's interesting. I think that's super valuable to make that distinction or ask those questions. So thank you. You mentioned feeling safe with our practitioner. Can you talk about that specifically?
Yeah. So the primary wound that most humans walk around with is a safety wound. Is it safe to be myself? Is it safe to be vulnerable? Underneath a lot of what goes on for people is safety. To have great sex, to have mind-blowing, crazy, never forget sex that you just fantasize and masturbate to for, the rest of your life, the basis of that is safety. You must feel safe with that person that you're with. Doesn't mean you're committed and you're married and you're spending the rest of your life together. I'm not talking about that type of safety. It's mostly, can I feel safe to be myself with this person? And so just in general, I'm a huge fan of safety, relationship wise. But when it comes to working around sexuality, which is often such a scary, scary, scary topic for people are petrified to talk about this. I have clients who they'll come to work with me specifically, which I'm a sex coach, and we don't even talk about sex for like sometimes 20 sessions, and so finally I'll say like, hey, do we want to just talk about pleasure? I don't use the word sex because it can overwhelm folks. But, so essentially it's like when you're working with a practitioner, you want to feel safe to share what's going on for you. If you don't feel safe to tell them things, if you feel like they're judging you or, they're putting stuff on you that's not yours, or you just can't say what's true for you, that is a huge red flag that this is not the right person for you to be working with. And again, if we don't have safety, we can't have great sex. If we don't have safety in a therapeutic dynamic, I don't think we can have great sessions that help us explore and dig deeper.
Since we're on this topic, let's talk a little bit about how we can create that feeling with our partner.
How to create safety with partners. Safety and trust is a really, really complex topic, actually, I think. It depends where the rupture of safety and trust has happened in that partnership. Is it this person has violated my boundaries and over again? Has there been an affair? Is it historical? Did I have safety stuff as a child? As we all know, because I had mentioned earlier, we all have some safety stuff. So I believe there's always this building of safety. Consistent communication is I think the most reliable way. Patience, time, trust, proving to your partner that you're there for them, that you're not going to explode when they share things, holding an open space. I talk about it in my practice as like learning to hold an open heart for yourself and for your partner. So it's not jumping down their throat. It's being there with them. It is a long process to build true trust and safety. And again, it depends where we're starting from. Someone could have a really traumatic childhood, but have done a lot of work in therapy. So they're actually starting from a place with a lot of tools. Or you could be in a relationship doing therapy for the very first time and notice like, oh, wow, we recreated the same dynamic I had in my childhood. Huge aha moment in couples therapy. And now you're trying to work through your couple as well as process your historical traumas. So again, it sort of just depends where we're starting from, but I think it's a really great topic to be talking about. And I think it actually really changes the tone of the way couples relate when one person says, I just don't feel safe here. And it can be difficult to hear that from a partner. Actually, I was just working with a mentee yesterday, and the people they were working with had one partner had acknowledged in his own experience, like, I actually don't trust anyone. I don't feel safe with anyone. It was a male in the partnership. And he surprisingly went and told his wife this. I mean, it was kind of like shocking to us. We were sitting in supervision and I said, that's such a huge step forward. Like, wow, amazing that he went and shared that vulnerable piece. Now the wife felt very, she took it personally, like, oh, wow, we've been together for 15 years. You don't trust me. And that's where it becomes very, very helpful to have a professional that you trust and that you like to be there to say like, no, this is a really good step. The fact that he told you how it was incredibly vulnerable, and a sense of like, wow, he does feel safe with you, safe enough to tell you he doesn't trust anybody or doesn't feel safe with anybody. So again, that's sort of the value of having a third party that you really trust that can help guide you through those potentially triggering places.
Before we continue on, we're going to take a short break to tell you about our sponsors. We all know the power of a good night's sleep. There is no better way to start a day than feeling well rested and ready to take on whatever comes your way. However, waking up refreshed is easier said than done. And what we don't all know is how impactful having the right sleep is for achieving the perfect dream state. We all deserve bedding that was made specifically to relax your tired soul and sore muscles at the end of a long day, which is why I absolutely love and sleep so well on my Cozy Earth sheets. Cozy Earth develops and crafts high-quality goods with reasonably and sustainably sourced materials from the earth so that you can get the restorative sleep you need. In my opinion, Cozy Earth has the most comfortable sheets on the market. I am just a little obsessed. Since they are made from sustainable viscose from bamboo fabrics, they are unbelievably soft, and I actually refuse to sleep on any other sheets in my bed. And get this, Cozy Earth bedding was invented so you could feel like you are sleeping at the perfect temperature. With moisture-wicking fabric, it feels significantly less humid and degrees cooler than cotton. They believe in their products so much that Cozy Earth offers a 100-night sleep test. That means you can try it for 100 nights, and if you don't love it, you can send it back for a full refund, which I have never done. Plus, they have a 10-year warranty on all of their products. And for good reason, Cozy Earth has been featured on Oprah's favorite list 4 years in a row, so I encourage you to discover why for yourself. Cozy Earth provided an exclusive offer for our listeners today. 35% off site-wide when you use the code IDOPODCAST at checkout. Take advantage of this amazing deal and visit CozyEarth.com. That's CozyEarth.com today and receive 35% off when you use the code IDOPODCAST at checkout. Trying something new can be so intimidating. Meditation may be something you've been hearing about, but you haven't tried it yet because you're just not sure where to begin. Thankfully, Calm helps you feel more at ease with meditating from the moment you start. It's simple and you don't need much. Just find somewhere that's comfortable and familiar to you, like your couch or your bed, and tune into Calm. We're partnering with Calm, the #1 mental wellness app, to give you the tools to improve the way you feel. Reduce stress and anxiety through guided meditations, improve focus with curated music tracks, and rest and recharge with Calm's imaginative sleep stories for children and adults. There's even new daily movement sessions designed to relax your body and uplift your mind. If you go to calm.com/IDO, you'll get a special offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription, and new content is added every week. Over 100 million people around the world use Calm to take care of their minds. Calm is ready to help you stress less, sleep more, and live a happier, healthier life. I love the Calm app, and I tune in whenever I need to ground myself, relax, and refocus. They have tons of options, so I can always find a meditation that matches whatever I need at that moment. Lately, the bedtime body scan recording has been putting me right to sleep, which I've always had a really, really hard time falling asleep. So it's been super helpful. And they even have kids meditation, which I just started using with Stella. So I will keep you posted on how that goes, but she's loving it so far. For listeners of the show, Calm is offering an exclusive offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/IDO. Go to calm.com/IDO for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/IDO. I was once given a simple piece of advice. Do one thing every single day to take care of yourself. Whether it's a full day of me being on the go or I'm having a slow, relaxing morning, Athletic Greens helps me make sure I'm following this advice every single day. When I added AG1 into my mornings, I was amazed at how easily it fit into my routine. I started taking it because I wanted to see what all the hype was about, but now that I'm experiencing a better sleep and digestion, I'm feeling super stoked about the benefits of consuming high-quality plant-based nutrition daily. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start off your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It also doesn't have that earthy, cakey taste that most powders have. Instead, it has a mild, tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one, like AG1, with high-quality ingredients that your body actually absorbs. Plus, if you're looking to cut down on purchasing several different vitamins and minerals, this is one way to go for your convenience and for your wallet. AG1 is one thing with all of the best things in it. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iteration and third-party testing. Right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/IDO. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/IDO to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
What are some of the first things that happen when you see a new client? I think for those people that are listening, obviously they're interested in finding a sex therapist or a coach. So what's the first session look like?
Yeah. So it can look a lot of different ways. I have no script for anybody that I work with. I guess we see each other. We say hi. That would be one for sure thing that's happening. I think what it was really important for people to know is that the person considering seeking therapy, you get to choose who you want to work with. and you get to choose the way the sessions go. And you can say to someone, I don't want to answer that, or that doesn't feel right for me, or I don't like the direction we're going, or I want to look at this. You can really advocate for yourself. And you can decide, I think, too, this person isn't the right fit for me. Even after 3 or 4 sessions, you can say, hey, I don't think this is heading in the right direction. But in general, I try, because the nature of sex, again, can be a very scary and vulnerable topic to talk about. I really let the client lead for a while. I let them share what they want to share. I ask gentle questions to help them feel like they can start to open up. And then once I know them a little bit more, then I can assess how much I can push them or not. Some people, you just wait for them. But it at the end of your first session, or even if you're having a consult call with someone, a discovery call with someone, and I normally say like the first 3 sessions or so, you really want to assess that safety piece. Like after, sit with yourself, especially, finding a therapist sometimes can take over 6 months to really find the right person. It's like, I think of it as like online dating or dating. You're not just going to go across the first Tinder profile and be like, okay, that person, like, let's date, let's start, let's do this, let's get married. You really assess and you get to know them and you ask lots of questions. And I want to advocate for people to do that with therapy. You don't just have to say like, oh, this is the only person in my area, or this is the person who wrote me back, or this is the person, which we can get into too, the fees. Like this is the person that fits with the fee I can afford. You want to feel after each session, and that's where it can be helpful to have a little journal. If you're doing multiple sessions with a couple different people to see who's the good fit, it's like, write down, like, what did you talk about? How are you feeling in your body? Do you feel like you trust this person? You feel, again, that safety piece. And do you feel like they're helpful? Like, do you feel like they really know what they're talking about? And from there, you can decide, yes, this is what I want to move forward into this relationship. And I'm going to make a deeper commitment of going through this with this person to really learn about myself.
You mentioned fees and said that there might be something more there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, fees. So it is a very real experience for a lot of people that therapy feels out of what's in their budget at this moment in time. And, it's tricky because, again, thinking about this a lot with helping, budding practitioners or, middle practitioners start their own private practice around sex coaching. There's a lot of stuff that goes into running a small business. I mean, essentially therapists are small business people. And so and it's not just like you pay them $200, they pocket $200, they walk out the door. There's a lot of, ongoing training and taxes and insurances. And, when you run your small business, you have to pay your medical. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that go into fees. So I think one of the things also for people to understand is like, it's not like they're just taking that money and putting it in their pocket. That being said, though, you have to be realistic about what you can afford. I don't think anyone should go into debt to seek therapy, but it has to be within what you can reasonably, you expend each month. And so I think one of the things to think about is if you find a practitioner that you really love and their fee feels too high, most practitioners have something called a sliding scale. And so you can ask them like, hey, I really want to work with you. There are people who are, in the healing practitioner like to heal people. So you can appeal to their side that wants to heal. And you can say, I really want to work with you. Here's what I think I can afford per month. How can we make this work? Can we shorten our session times? Like I do hour and 10-minute sessions. So you can shorten them. Instead of seeing weekly, you can do biweekly. I typically would not see anybody doing less than biweekly just because I think continuity is really important. But there's ways to work it out. There's ways to figure out, how to make the fee piece work. And I think you can expect anywhere between for sex coaching, sex therapy, anywhere between like 125, 150 to upwards of like 400, 450. It really depends on where people are located, how many, how long their waiting list is, what their trainings are. And I think it's tough because sometimes it feels like, oh, all therapists are the same, but it's unfortunately not true. You can have the same exact training with someone, have gone through the same exact steps, the same continuing education. And the way that it gets delivered by one person feels totally different than the other person. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the one practitioner is better than the other. It's just how it sits for you. So it's being reasonable, but also, not just going with the cheapest person. It's not like a plane ticket. It's not like you're going to end up in the same place, like on a flight is like, oh yeah, I found this deal on Delta, but that's not really how it works with therapy. You oftentimes do get what you pay for.
It's definitely well worth the investment. And I get it. It's like going to therapy. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. It's not incredibly expensive, but it's like, oh, I could use that money on something else. But it's really, when you think about it, some of the best spent money you can budget for. So yeah, do it, and you're going to grow richer for it, in other areas of your life.
Right. It's prioritizing your mental health and saying, I choose to look at who I am, how I'm being in the world. And I want to be a better version, a less defended version, a more open, a more conscious, a person who can be happier, or at least have access to happiness. All of those pieces. So yeah, I agree with you. I spend lots and lots of money in therapy, and I don't, it makes my life better, actually. And in my world, I budget for it. I'm a therapist, so I believe in it. But I can see how it would be scary for people if they've never thought about doing it and they think about taking on this thing. I guess it's more similar to like a gym, it's like we budget for gyms, something like that.
Yes, definitely. Well, Keeley, you've given our listeners and myself a lot to think about, some great tools for looking for a sex therapist or a therapist in general as well. Before we wrap up, are there any things that we skipped over, or maybe something you want to emphasize before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I'd love to just real quick. There's 2 questions I actually think are really important to ask when you're interviewing people. And again, oftentimes, you kind of have this, the very beginning of a new therapeutic relationship, there's an opportunity to really ask a lot of questions. And I want to encourage people to do that. And the 2 questions that I really think people should ask, the first one is, how do you believe people heal? So you are the client asking the practitioner, tell me, how do you believe people heal? It's going to tell you a lot about that person's thought process in their response. A bad response is someone saying, oh, we just talk about things and it'll get better that way. Unless it's just shame, unless you're really struggling with a lot of shame, talking about shame is probably the best antidote to shame. But other than that, you need a deeper process to healing. And you want to learn about that therapist's belief around how do people heal. So any, answers that are good would be anything around, feeling into past stuck traumas and, doing subconscious discovery. The keywords would be like somatic or gestalt, mindfulness, all of those pieces is like, how do we create new patterns inside the brain so that we're not stuck in old ones? Talking does not create that. Talking actually just keeps you in the same old patterns over and over and over, just like rotating around and round and round. So that's, I think, a really important question. That first one is, how do you believe people heal? The second question to ask your practitioner is, tell me about a time when you realized you were not a right fit for a client and how you navigated that. Every practitioner has worked with someone that they were a bad fit for. And here you're assessing, can this person tell when they are not quite right? And can they advocate for the client to say, I'm not the practitioner for you. Let's help you find the right person.
Excellent. Those are 2 great, very actionable things to ask, and combined with everything else we talked about today, I think our listeners are going to have a great toolkit out there in the world to do this very important work. So thank you so much, Keeley. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you online, and then we'll say goodbye?
Yeah, yes. So the easiest place to find me is my website, which is Keeley Rankin, KeeleyRankin. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and my handles are Just the Tips Sex Coach.
I love that. We'll have the links in our show notes and on our website at idopodcast.com. And thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Yes, it was wonderful to chat with you. And I hope this is really helpful for people.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. As always, all the links to the guest as well as any of their recommendations will be in the show notes page. You can find the link to that in the episode description or by going to idopodcast.com. Click on the podcast tab up at the top and you will have access to all the episodes that we've ever done. There are over 300 of them. And while you're on our website, if you haven't checked out our free 14-day happy couple challenge, we really hope you do. It's a free email challenge that we send to you. It's 14 days of fun, easy, doable challenges to help strengthen and improve your relationship. And if you're looking for something that provides a little more help with working on your relationship, whether it's improving intimacy or communication with your partner, or just bringing the spark back, we would love for you guys to check out our online course, Spark My Relationship. We're offering $100 off to all of our listeners if you go to sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. We've worked with over 15 psychologists and therapists to create the real life tools and strategies that they are teaching their clients. So we wanted to give them to you. It's a self-paced online course that can be done in as little as a month or up to 3 months. You can really decide how much or how little you want to do with your partner, or maybe just yourself. So we hope you guys check that out. It's sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. Have a great day.